everyone, welcome to another tutorial on using Excel. In this tutorial, we'll be looking at ways to join data from different cells or different columns into a single cell. Here as an example, we have a data table with countries, their capitals, and the continent that they are a part of. The exercise is to link or join these different data cells into a single cell. So basically, combine the values from all of these different column cells into a single cell. The first row has been filled as an example. So if we look at row number 4, we see that the values in B4, C4, and D4 right here have been combined together into a single value in column number E4. So today we'll start off by looking at the first method, which is using the AND operator, or rather the ampersand, as its formal name goes, the ampersand operator, to combine or join these values together. And then we'll be looking at two more methods and try and understand the pros and cons of using each of these methods. So let's begin. First method is to join these cells together using the ampersand operator, also known as AND. So we choose the first cell, followed by the ampersand, then the second cell, followed by the ampersand, and the third cell. And we can immediately see here that the values have been joined together. So let's try this on one more example and see how this works. So if you go on to row number 6, choose the first cell in column B, then the second one, and then the third one. We will see that the values are joined together again. So this is rather simple. And now we have the formula, we can simply drag it, and we have all the cells filled up. So one important thing to note about this method, and this is by far the oldest and the most simple methods of joining or linking values from different cells into a single cell. So this is a method which came first, and then this method was bettered when Excel started using the concatenate function to join these values. So let's see how the concatenate function works. So in order to use the concatenate function, we write concatenate, and then we would select all the cells that we want to join together or link together into a single value. So there we are. We write the function name and enter the cell values, and they are again joined together. The answer, as you can see, is the same as what we got from method 1, which was using the ampersand operator. Now, all we need to do is drag the formula, and there we are. We have the values for all of the combinations. A quick note about the difference. So one primary difference between using the concatenate function and the AND or the ampersand operator is that here you will have to type in ampersand every time. So for example, when we are trying to link or join values from 3 different cells, as in this case, you can see that we had to manually type in ampersand twice. Now imagine if you were trying to join data from 5 different columns or 5 cells. That implies that you would have to enter ampersand 4 times. So one less than the number of cells that you're trying to join. If you were trying to join data from 7 cells, 7 columns, you'd have to enter ampersand manually 6 times. So this is one major difference, and as the number of cells or columns that you're trying to join increases, it becomes more cumbersome to deal with that kind of a formula. So here we have just looked at concatenate and the way concatenate functions out here. A key thing to remember about concatenate is that if you look at the formal syntax of concatenate, it generally says that if you want to concatenate different text fields is when you can use concatenate to join them together. However, remember that concatenate could be used to join not just text, it can be used to join text and numbers and alphanumeric strings as well. So I would recommend that you think of this in terms of joining strings. Now, these strings can be text, these strings can be numbers, or these strings could be alphanumeric. So before we move on to the final method, let's take a look at the exact syntax of concatenate again. So here we have the syntax of concatenate the way I recommend, which is concatenate followed by the list of strings that you want to join together. If you see how Excel specifies it, you will notice that it says concatenate followed by text 1, text 2, and so on. However, you can use this for numbers or alphanumeric as well. Some more examples that's mentioned here. So for example, in row number 7, if we try and concatenate 3 different text fields, which is cotton, county, and street, and you can see the result is cotton, county, street. If you try and concatenate cotton, county, and the number 7, the response or the result will be cotton, county, 7. So you can see that numbers are being joined or linked as well. One important aspect here is if you are using string literals, which is using constant values like cotton, like county, like street, remember that you will have to encase them within double quotes. If you don't do it, it's not going to work. Let's take a quick example of that. So for example, here, let's say we want to concatenate 2 words, cotton and county. If you just type in the word cotton and county and you try and run the formula, it doesn't work. You get an error message. Remember here, the text fields or the text literals like cotton and county would need to be between double quotes, otherwise this wouldn't work. Let's try this again. This time we'll use double quotes. There we are, it worked. The other important thing for us to bear in mind is that when you use concatenate, it will not insert delimiters like spaces in between the words or the strings that you're trying to add. So if you want delimiters, for example, instead of cotton county, if you wanted cotton space county as in a sentence, you will have to account for that delimiter in your formula. The way we can do that is, for example, let's say we retype the formula or the function and we state cotton, and then right after cotton, let's say we want a space, and then we want the word county. So here we can insert a space, double quotes with a space in between, and then we can add the word county right here. And this time you'll see on the result, you do have a space between the words cotton and county. So this is how concatenate would function. Let's take a look at another example. If you were to concatenate apples and oranges are nice, all of them are between double quotes, and this is the result you can expect. If you see here, there are no delimiters in this sentence or this concatenated list of words. You don't have space between each of the distinct words. If you want space, there are a couple of different ways that you can insert it. One way that you can insert space is after each word, you can put a space. So for example, in this row number 10, you can see after apples, there is a space which has been entered. After and, there is a space which has been entered. After oranges, there is a space which has been entered. And as a result, when you do that, you will see in the final output, you will see a space between the different words. So you can either do that, or the other option is when you use concatenate, within the function itself, you can insert spaces, as we saw in a prior example, and that will also allow you to format the final output like a proper sentence, where you have delimiters or spaces between different words. All right, let's go back to the third version. So the newest in the list, newest is a relative term here. So the first thing you had was the ampersand operator. Later on, you had concatenate, and the most recent function in this category is the concat function. So what is the concat function? The concat function is in some ways an improvement upon the concatenate function. You will remember in concatenate, you had to individually select all the cells that you wanted to join or concatenate together. But what if I don't want to individually select the cells? If my data is in a contiguous range, by that what I mean is the data that you want to join is continuous. So you have Brasilia, followed by Brazil, followed by South America. They are following one after the other. It's a continuous range. If I want to do that, do I necessarily need to select all the cells one by one? Can I not select a range? Well, the answer is for concatenate, you can't. But here's where the improvement is. If you were to use a concat function, concat does allow you selection of a range. So here I will not have to select the cells one by one. I can select the range, and you can see pretty much you get the same output. Let's try another example. If you try concat and you select the range, you get the same output right here. And now we can simply drag the formula. So concat has a definite advantage over concatenate. When your data or your cells are in a certain range, you can definitely select that range and get your answer without selecting individual cells in the formula. One issue that still remains is, remember, concat will not, just like concatenate, will not insert delimiters or spaces between the different strings that you're trying to join together. If you want delimiters, then you'll have to account for that separately by one of the methods that we looked at when we were studying the syntax of concatenate, which is either you insert spaces at the end of each string, or you account for it in some other way, like inserting spaces within concatenate. Okay, so now let's shift our attention to the first problem that we're going to look at today. So here we have an example problem. There's a company, ABC Incorporated. It has hired 7 new employees. Their names listed in rows 9 to 15. And on the first day of their joining the organization, ABC wants to generate their official email address. The format that ABC follows for their email address is last name _ first name @abc.com. That's their email address format. And the first row has been filled as an example. So for instance, for the first employee, Liam Smith, the email address would be smith _ Liam @abc.com. This is the output that we want. So how do we go about doing this? So let's take an example using the oldest, the most primitive method, which is using the ampersand operator here. So in this case, if you were to apply it, the way it would work is we select the last name, then the ampersand operator, followed by, remember, there's an underscore. So we put the underscore, use the ampersand operator again, and select the first name. And then we need another string, which is @abc.com. This is the desired format. All right, let's see if this works as expected. Yep, there we are. So we have the last name _ the first name @abc.com. Now we can simply extend and stretch this, and we do have the answer right here. All right, now let's take a look at a quick extension of the same problem, which is you have to do the same thing. You have to create the email address. The only difference is this time the format is simply last name space first name @abc.com. So this should be rather simple for us. We select the last name, ampersand. Remember, we have to give a space. So space has to be entered separately as a blank string. And then you have the first name, and then you have the constant string, which is @abc.com. There we are. All right. And this is the format in which the question requires us to format it. And that's your answer. Now, as a part of the second problem, we'll try and solve the same using concatenate instead of the ampersand. So this should be rather simple as well. Use concatenate. We use the last name Remember that none of these methods put in delimiters or spaces on their own, so we still have to account for them. So in this case, it's the underscore followed by the first name, followed by another string, which is @abc.com. Right, there we are. Same result as before. The difference is this time we used the concatenate function. And that's our answer. And the final piece of the puzzle is, again, generate the official email address. The only thing is the format is slightly different. You don't have an underscore between last name and first name. You have a blank space. So let's go ahead, type in concatenate. We have the last name. This time you have a blank space, not an underscore. Be careful about that. And the first name, and then the last part of the domain name for the organization, abc.com. You have that. And here we are. We have the final result. Now we can simply drag it. As we can see, concatenate can have quite a few uses. You can put together data in different formats from different columns, different cells. These can be different data types. These can be text, numeric, alphanumeric. This sort of a functionality is also helpful, let's say, when you're trying to generate something like artificial primary key. So given a list of different cells, if you want to create a unique identifier, then concatenate is a very useful method to generate a unique identifier where each unique identifier refers to one specific combination of data values in different rows. So that's a very useful application of using concatenate or concat for that matter when you're dealing with text or numbers and you want to join them together. So this brings us to the end of this tutorial. Thank you for watching. See you next time.